The impact threw me forward. Airbag, pain, darkness, then voices. My son, Mom, Mom, can you hear me? I tried to answer, couldn't. He was calling someone. His voice dropped. It's done. The accident, it's bad. Real bad. A woman's voice, cold. Is she almost? If she doesn't wake up in 72 hours, then we're free. Then we're rich. I lay there, eyes closed, heart racing, recording every word. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with more compelling stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us what would you do in Helen's situation. Quick reminder, while this story is inspired by real-life themes of family trust and justice, some details have been fictionalized for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or places is coincidental, but the lessons are very real. They say you can tell who truly love the dead by how they stand at the grave. I stood closest to Robert's casket at Bonaventure Cemetery, my hand resting on the polished mahogany Spanish moss, swaying in the humid savanna breeze. 48 years of marriage, and now I stood alone. But I wasn't watching the casket. I was watching my son. Andrew stood 3 feet back, his wife Nicole's hand tight on his arm. He wasn't crying, neither was she. They were waiting. I could feel it in their silence, in the way Nicole's eyes kept darting toward the parking lot, in the way Andrew shifted his weight like a man anxious to leave. Robert's last words came back to me, whispered in our bedroom 4 nights before he passed. The morphine made his voice thin, but his grip on my hand was fierce. Helen, he'd said. Watch Andrew. Watch the money. I'd kissed his forehead. You're tired, sweetheart. Rest. But he wouldn't let go. Promise me. I promised. I thought it was the morphine talking end-of-life fears about leaving me alone. Robert had always handled the finances. I taught 2nd grade for 35 years. I knew classroom budgets and phonics lessons. I didn't know the first thing about managing $7 million in assets. $7 million. The number still didn't feel real. The minister's voice droned on ashes to ashes, dust to dust, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to Nicole. She wore a black Chanel dress I'd never seen before, and at her wrist a diamond bracelet caught the sunlight. Cartier, if I wasn't mistaken. Andrew worked as an insurance agent. His salary couldn't afford jewelry like that. Across the grave, Rose Winters caught my eye. She'd been my best friend for 40 years. Rose stepped closer as the minister finished his prayer. Helen, honey, she murmured. You holding up? I nodded, throat too tight to speak. Rose glanced at Andrew and Nicole, then leaned closer. I don't want to upset you right now, but that girl's been asking about your house since Robert got sick. How much it's worth, what neighborhood, if it's paid off. Asked me 3 times. My stomach clenched. Nicole asked you that. Rose's mouth was a thin line. Just thought you should know. Before I could respond, Martin Reynolds appeared at my side. Gray suit, kind eyes, leather briefcase. He'd been Robert's attorney for 20 years. Helen, I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Martin. He hesitated. I hate to bring this up now, but we should schedule the will reading. Tomorrow at 2 if you're up for it. My office on Bull Street. I nodded, numb. Tomorrow's fine. Martin patted my shoulder and walked away, but not before I saw it, the way Nicole's head snapped up at the mention of the will. The way her fingers tightened on Andrew's arm. The way she leaned close and whispered something urgent. Andrew's face went pale. He nodded once, twice. Then his eyes met mine across Robert's grave, and I saw it. For the first time in 40 years, I saw something in my son's face I didn't recognize. Something cold, something calculating. The same look I'd seen in Nicole's eyes since the day Andrew brought her home 5 years ago. The day she'd walked through my house appraising everything like a real estate agent sizing up a property. Robert's warning echoed, "Watch Andrew, watch the money." The Spanish moss stirred overhead, casting shadows across the red Georgia clay. Mourners filed past offering condolences I barely heard, but I didn't move. I stood there, Robert's casket between me and my son, and made a decision. I would watch, very carefully. because somewhere between the boy who'd cried in my arms and the man standing across from me now, I'd lost him. And if Robert had spent his final conscious moments trying to warn me, then something was very wrong. Tomorrow, Martin would read the will. Tomorrow, I'd find out exactly what Andrew and Nicole were waiting for. And tomorrow, I'd start paying attention to all the things I should have noticed months ago. After the funeral, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m, I sat at Robert's desk and pulled out a yellow legal pad. At the top, I wrote, "Things to watch for." Nicole's questions about the house, Andrew's evasiveness, the Cartier bracelet, Rose's warning. By sunrise, I'd filled 2 pages. At 7, I called Rose. She answered on the second ring. "Helen, what's wrong? I need your help. Don't ask questions yet." 20 minutes later, she arrived with 2 grocery bags, inside 4 wireless cameras. "I had a feeling," she said. We worked quickly. 1 behind a picture frame in the living room, 1 in the kitchen behind a vase, 1 in Robert's study hidden in the bookshelf, 1 in the hallway disguised as a smoke detector. "I feel ridiculous," I said. "This is my son." Rose squeezed my hand. "Robert told you to watch. That's not ridiculous. That's survival." Survival. As if I needed to protect myself from my own child. On day 3, Andrew called. "Mom, can Nicole and I stop by?" My stomach tightened. "Of course, sweetheart." They arrived at 2 o'clock. Andrew hugged me a real hug. For a moment, I let myself believe I'd imagined everything. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Managing. 1 day at a time." Nicole followed him in white jeans, silk blouse, sunglasses in her hair. She kissed my cheek, leaving expensive perfume behind. We sat in the living room. Andrew cleared his throat. "Mom did Dad update his will recently?" My hands stilled on the teapot. "I'm not sure. Martin will tell us tomorrow." Andrew nodded, jaw tight. His knee bounced a nervous habit from childhood. "We wanted to make sure everything was in order. For you." "For me," I repeated. Nicole smiled, patting my hand. "We don't want you worrying about complicated legal things. That paperwork can be overwhelming at your age." At your age. They stayed 20 minutes. Small talk about whether Nicole's real estate work. Then they left Nicole pausing in the foyer, eyes lingering on the chandelier. After they were gone, I went to Robert's study and opened my laptop. The camera footage loaded slowly. I watched myself pour tea. I watched Andrew's face as he asked about the will eyes not meeting mine. Then I watched Nicole. While Andrew and I talked, she stood, walked casually to Robert's desk, pulled out her phone, photographed 3 documents in the open drawer: property deeds, investment statements, bank account summaries, quick, professional, and Andrew stayed by the door, not looking at me, looking at the hallway, standing guard. My hands shook. Even in the grainy footage, I could see the calculation in Nicole's expression. This was real, not grief or paranoia. I had the cameras. I had footage of Nicole documenting my assets, but I didn't have enough, not yet, not to prove what they were really planning. I thought about calling Martin, asking him to move up the will reading, but no, better to let them think I suspected nothing. The will reading was scheduled for 2 o'clock at Martin's office. In less than 24 hours, I'd sit across from Andrew and Nicole and watch their faces when they learned the truth about Robert's estate. And then only then would I know exactly how dangerous they really were. The clock on Martin's wall read 1:58 p.m. I sat in the leather chair, hands folded, trying to ignore how my heart hammered. Rose sat beside me. Across the room, Andrew kept checking his watch. Nicole scrolled through her phone, her cream Louboutin heel bouncing. They'd arrived exactly on time. Andrew in a charcoal suit. Nicole in a black sheath dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Martin cleared his throat and opened the folder. Robert's will is straightforward. His entire estate, including the primary residence, 5 rental properties, commercial land investments, and life insurance totaling approximately $6. 8 million passes in full to his surviving spouse, Helen Hartley. The air shifted. Upon Helen's death, All remaining assets transfer to Andrew Hartley as sole beneficiary. Nicole's smile froze. Not disappeared, froze, like someone hit pause. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Andrew went pale color, draining like water from a tub. That's great, Mom. We're really happy for you. His voice cracked. Nicole recovered faster. She smoothed her dress and squeezed my hand. Of course, Helen. We're so glad you're taken care of. Her hand was cold. Her smile still hadn't reached her eyes. They stayed only long enough to be polite. 5 minutes of weather talk, empty questions about whether I needed anything. Then Nicole stood pulling Andrew with her. We should let you rest. This must be exhausting. They were gone before I could offer coffee. Rose and I stayed another 20 minutes with Martin. When we left, I noticed something on Nicole's chair, her purse, cream leather with a gold clasp. She forgot this, I said. Rose raised an eyebrow. Did she? Back home, I set the purse on my kitchen table. It felt like holding evidence. But Robert's voice was in my head. Watch the money. Watch Andrew. I opened it. Wallet. Lipstick. Keys. And tucked in the interior pocket, a second phone. Not Nicole's rose gold iPhone. This was cheap generic. A burner. My stomach dropped. I turned it on with shaking hands. One text thread. No names. The messages were from this morning. Unknown, did she inherit everything? Response. Yes, all of it. 6.8 M. Unknown, so we wait. Nicole. No. Move faster. She's old. Could be years. Unknown, how fast, Nicole soon. I'll take care of it. I read them again. My vision blurred. I'll take care of it. Take care of what? Take care of me. I photographed every message with trembling hands, every word, every timestamp. Then I turned off the burner and put it back exactly where I'd found it. I was still gripping the table when the doorbell rang. Rose. I'd texted her without thinking. What's wrong? She asked, reading my face. I handed her the phone and turned it back on. Rose's face went white. Her hand covered her mouth. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. Helen, she whispered. This sounds like they're planning, like they want to harm me. I finished. Rose grabbed my arm. We call the police, right now. And tell them what... My voice was steadier than I felt. We don't know who she's texting. We can't prove Andrew's involved. Texts alone won't hold up. So what are you saying? I looked at her. I'm saying if they want me gone, I need to know how far they'll go. I need video, audio, witnesses, everything. Helen, if I'm wrong, I said quietly, I lose my son. But if I'm right, I save my life. Rose stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Then let's get you everything you need. 24 hours later, Rose and I walked into the Savannah Police Department on Habersham Street. The building smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages. I'll take care of it. Rose knew someone in homicide. She's good, Rose had said. Sharp, she'll listen. When Detective Sarah Collins walked into the interview room, tall black woman with graying locks tied back maybe early 40s, she didn't smile or offer condolences. She sat down, folded her hands on the metal table and said, "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out." So I did. Robert's warning, the funeral, the cameras, Nicole photographing my documents, the will reading, the burner phone, every text message. I spoke for 20 minutes while Sarah took notes. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back. You're right to be scared, but texts aren't enough for an arrest. My stomach sank. So what do I do? What are you proposing? I took a breath. I want to give them the opportunity. I want them to try. You want to bait them, Sarah said. I want to catch them in the act. Sarah was quiet. Then she set down her pen. 15 years ago, my mother inherited $3.2 million from my grandmother. 6 months later, she was gone. Car accident on Highway 80. Her brakes had been tampered with. My breath caught. My stepfather and his girlfriend were arrested. They're both serving 25 to life. Sarah's jaw tightened. I was 27, a rookie cop. I couldn't save her, but I can help you. Rose squeezed my hand. What do you have in mind? I asked. Sarah pulled out a folder. We stage a controlled accident. You lose control of your car at low speed, maybe 25 miles per hour crash into a tree or ditch. Non-fatal, but serious looking. Airbag deploys theatrical injuries. I nodded, mouth dry. Real EMTs transport you to Memorial Health. Dr. Alan Sheffield in the ER will cooperate. He'll tell Andrew and Nicole you're critical but stable. Next 72 hours are crucial. And then, we wire your hospital room, video and audio. We record everything they say when they think you're unconscious. Sarah's expression was hard. If they incriminate themselves, we have evidence. If they don't, you're safe and we drop it. What if they don't say anything? Then you wake up and go home. But my gut says they won't be able to resist. She slid another paper across the table. Financial records. I pulled some preliminary information this morning. Nicole has $78,000 in credit card debt. Andrew's 3 months behind on mortgage payments. They refinanced twice in 2 years. Sarah tapped the paper. They're desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things. My chest tightened. Andrew had never told me. Rose spoke. When would this happen? We need 2 days to set up, Thursday morning. Sarah looked at me. Helen, this is dangerous. If something goes wrong, if I do nothing, I'm in danger anyway, I said. At least this way I have some control. Sarah nodded. Then she stood and extended her hand. Then let's get to work. As we left the station, Rose silent beside me, I thought about Andrew, the little boy who'd cried after nightmares, who'd held my hand crossing streets. And then the man at Robert's grave. Cold eyes, calculating. Tomorrow we'd set the trap. In 72 hours, I'd know the truth. All of it. Officer Ramirez arrived at 9 in the morning with a duffel bag full of equipment. He was young, maybe 30, with careful hands and a quiet voice. Sarah had introduced him as her tech specialist. Mrs. Hartley. He said, setting the bag on my kitchen table. We're going to wire your house and your car. If they come back, we'll hear everything. He paused, meeting my eyes. This is dangerous. You understand that... I looked at the bag, at the cameras, at the future I was choosing. Doing nothing is more dangerous, I said. He nodded and got to work. For the next 3 hours, Rose and I watched Ramirez transform my home. Pinhole cameras in my bedroom, living room, dining room, so small I couldn't see them, even when he pointed them out. He installed a GPS tracker under my car's rear bumper, showed me the miniature microphones for the hospital room vents. Voice activated, he explained. They'll pick up everything within 15 feet. When he finished, he shook my hand. Good luck, ma'am. Sarah arrived that afternoon for the final briefing. We sat in Robert's study. The accident happens, day 10, around 5 p.m. on Whitaker Street Extension low-traffic wooded area, Sarah said. You'll lose control, hit a tree at low speed, 25 miles per hour maximum. Airbag deploys. We'll stage bruising with makeup and 1 shallow cut controlled sterilized. My mouth went dry. Real EMTs arrive, they'll be briefed. You'll be transported to Memorial Health. Doctor, Alan Sheffield ER attending is cooperating. He'll tell Andrew and Nicole you're critical but stable. Next 72 hours are crucial. And then we wait. Desperate people talk. Guilty people confess. Or they act. The word hung between us. Act. What if they try something at the hospital? Sarah's expression softened. Officer Torres will be outside your door 24/7 disguised as hospital security. You'll be safe, I promise. I wanted to believe her. That night alone in Robert's study, I sat at his desk for a long time. His reading glasses were still there, folded on top of a book he'd never finished. His favorite tie, navy blue with thin silver stripes, was draped over the chair back. I picked up the tie, pressed it to my face. It still smelled like him. Like Old Spice and coffee and 48 years of mornings. Robert, I whispered into the empty room. Am I doing the right thing? But then I remembered the texts. I'll take care of it. I wrapped the tie around my wrist like a bracelet, an anchor, a talisman. I'm not wrong, I said to the darkness, and I won't let them take what you and I built. I pulled out a piece of stationery and wrote a letter. I didn't know why, maybe superstition, maybe fear that despite Sarah's promises, something could go truly wrong. I sealed it in an envelope and wrote Rose's name on the front. The next morning I gave it to her. If anything happens to me, really happens, give this to Sarah. Rose's hand shook as she took it. Nothing will happen, she said fiercely. I tried to smile, tried to believe her. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Robert's tie wrapped around my wrist. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., I would get in my car and drive to Whitaker Street Extension. Tomorrow I would crash. Tomorrow I would gamble my life to save it. At 4:47, I sat in my car at the corner of Whitaker and East 52nd Hands, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. Sarah's voice crackled through the tiny earbud hidden under my hair. Helen, you have 13 minutes. Drive slow. Deep breaths. My heart hammered. I thought of the texts, I'll take care of it, and turned the key. Sarah had mapped the route 3 times. Whitaker Street, Extension wooded area, minimal traffic. I drove exactly 25 miles per hour. The marked tree appeared ahead. A white X in chalk on the bark. Ramirez had measured everything. Safe angle. Safe speed. Nothing about this felt safe. Okay, Helen. Sarah's voice came through. In 10 seconds, 9-8. I pressed the accelerator slightly. My whole body shook. 3, 2, now. I jerked the wheel hard to the right. The airbag exploded in my face with a sound like a gunshot. White powder everywhere. Pain bloomed across my chest, bruised ribs sharp and real. I slumped forward, eyes closed, tasting blood from where I'd bitten my lip. Footsteps running. Sarah's face appeared at the window. Helen, she whispered. You okay? I nodded weakly. Oscar-worthy, she muttered, stepping back as sirens wailed. The EMTs arrived within minutes, real emergency responders who'd been briefed. They loaded me onto a stretcher. I kept my eyes half closed, moaning softly whenever they moved me. At Memorial Health, Dr. Alan Sheffield took charge. Late 50s, kind eyes, steady hands. He examined me quickly and whispered near my ear, You're a brave woman, Mrs. Hartley. Then louder to the nurses, Possible internal injuries, fractured ribs, concussion protocol. Notify family immediately. ICU. I was moved to room 307, the one Ramirez had wired 2 days ago. They settled me into bed, started an IV-attached monitors that beeped steadily. A nurse tied something around my wrist, Robert's tie. Sarah must have slipped it to them. Through my lashes, I saw Officer Torres position himself outside the door dressed in hospital security uniform. He caught my eye, nodded once. At 6:15, I heard them in the hallway. Andrew's voice urgent and frightened. Nicole's heels clicking fast on linoleum. Dr. Sheffield intercepted them. I could hear every word through the door microphone. Your mother is stable but critical. The next 72 hours will determine recovery. She's unconscious now. You can see her, but keep it brief. Nicole's voice carefully controlled. Will she wake up? We hope so, but at her age, with this kind of trauma, it's uncertain. A pause, then footsteps approaching. They entered my room. I kept my eyes closed, breathing shallow and slow. Through my lashes, I saw Andrew's face, pale, stricken. He reached for my hand. For 1 second, one terrible second, I thought I'd been wrong. This was my son, my boy. He was scared. He cared. But then Nicole leaned close to him, lips nearly touching his ear, and whispered something so soft I almost didn't catch it. How long do we wait? Andrew didn't answer. His hand squeezed mine once hard, almost painful, then let go. They left. I lay in the darkness, Robert's tie wrapped around my wrist monitors, beeping their steady rhythm. Officer Torres was outside. Sarah was watching from the surveillance van. Ramirez was recording everything. The next 72 hours would decide everything. The monitors beeped steadily. I'd been lying here for 18 hours. My back ached from staying in one position. My mouth was so dry I could barely swallow, but I didn't move, didn't open my eyes, didn't let my breathing change. Through the door, I heard footsteps approaching. 2 pairs. Nicole's heels sharp, quick, impatient clicking on linoleum. Andrew's slower, heavier, hesitant. Sarah's voice crackled in the tiny earbud hidden under my hair. "They're coming in. Stay still. We're recording." I slowed my breathing, made it ragged and shallow. Let them think I was dying. The door opened. Andrew's cologne reached me first, the same brand Robert used to wear. It made my chest ache. Andrew sat in the chair beside my bed. His hand found mine warm and familiar. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." His voice cracked. He was crying. For a moment, just a moment, I wanted to open my eyes, to tell him it was okay, to forgive him. But then Nicole spoke. "Andrew, we need to talk about practical things." Her voice was cold. Her will, the properties. "Nicole, not now." "When then?" Her heels clicked as she moved closer. "If she doesn't wake up, we need to be ready." Andrew's voice was thick. "She's my mother. And she's sitting on $6.8 million while we're drowning in debt." Nicole's tone sharpened. "Let's talk outside." Andrew squeezed my hand once too hard, almost painful, then let go. Their footsteps retreated. The door clicked shut. But I could hear every word through the hallway microphone. Nicole's voice low and hissing. "This is taking too long. What if she wakes up? What do you want me to say?" Andrew sounded exhausted. "I didn't sign up for what? For solving our problems." Nicole cut him off. "You're $120,000 in debt, Andrew. The bank is foreclosing on our house in 3 months." "I know that. Then you know this accident is a gift. We don't have to do anything, we just wait." A pause. I strained to hear. "What if someone finds out about before—" Andrew's voice was barely audible. "About what, a few texts?" Nicole laughed sharp and bitter. "Relax, no one's looking." Another pause. "If she wakes up," Nicole said slowly, "we're back to waiting for years, maybe decades. I'm 37, Andrew. I'm not waiting until I'm 50 to live the life I deserve." Andrew didn't respond. They walked away, footsteps fading down the corridor. I lay there in the hospital bed, heart racing so hard I was afraid the monitors would give me away. Sarah's voice came through the earbud. "Perfect, keep going. We need more." More. She needed more evidence, more proof, more of my son condemning himself. I thought about Andrew at 5 years old, crying after a nightmare. I thought about teaching him to ride a bike, to be kind to people. I thought about the day he graduated college. And I thought about the man in that hallway listening to his wife talk about my death like it was a business transaction. Somewhere between that little boy and this man, I'd lost him. That afternoon, they came back. Nicole brought flowers, white lilies, the kind people send to funerals. She set them on the bedside table with a smile for the nurse. "For when she wakes up," she said sweetly. But when the nurse left, when she thought we were alone, Nicole leaned close to my bed, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral. She bent down her lips near my ear and whispered, "I hope you don't wake up, Helen. It would be so much easier that way." Then she straightened, smoothed her dress, and walked out, heels clicking. I lay there shaking inside Robert's tie, still wrapped around my wrist like armor. Sarah's voice, "Got it. All of it." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt broken. The next few days would tell me everything I needed to know. On day 2, Nicole came alone. It was 2 in the afternoon. I heard her heels in the hallway, then the door opening. She checked the corridor first, then pulled out her phone and typed fast. A text alert. She read it and smiled. She walked to my bedside and leaned close. "Still sleeping, Helen," she whispered. "Good, stay that way." Then she kissed my forehead. It took everything I had not to flinch. At 2:15, she stepped into the hallway close enough to the door that the microphone caught every word. She called someone. It's me. She's still out. No, the doctor says maybe another day or two. I know. If she wakes up, we're done. A pause. Damien, listen, the baby doesn't change anything. Andrew thinks it's his. He'll never know. My mind registered the name, Damien. Because I'm not stupid. I've been careful. Yes, I'm sure. 16 weeks. The timing works out. Another pause. Look, once she's gone and the money comes through, we can... Footsteps. She ended the call abruptly. I lay there, heart pounding. Nicole was pregnant. 16 weeks. And the father was someone named Damien, not Andrew. That evening, Andrew came alone. It was late past visiting hours. He must have convinced the nurses to let him in. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. He sat in the chair beside my bed and put his head in his hands. Mom, I don't know what to do. His voice broke. Nicole keeps talking about money, about the house, about the future. And I just want you to wake up, he cried, shoulders shaking. I messed up. I borrowed money I shouldn't have. Got us into debt. And now Nicole, she's so angry all the time. She says it's your fault for not helping us. He wiped his eyes. But it's not your fault. It's mine. I'm weak, Mom. I'm sorry. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. Please wake up, please. I wanted to open my eyes, to hold him, to forgive him. But Sarah's voice came through the earbud. Not yet. We need Nicole on record. The next morning, day 3, 11 o'clock, Sarah watched from the surveillance van as Nicole met someone in the hospital parking lot. A man, tall, dark-haired, wearing a leather jacket. Sarah's parabolic microphone picked up their conversation. If she wakes up, we're done, the man said. His voice was rough, impatient. She won't wake up, Nicole replied. And even if she does, she's old. We can wait. I'm not waiting. You promised me half of that money. And you'll get it. Just be patient. The man grabbed her arm. Get it done. Then he kissed her hard, possessive, and walked away. Sarah's voice crackled in my earbud. Helen, we have him. Nicole's lover. Damien Ross. Running his plates now. That night, I lay in the dark monitors, beeping softly. Sarah's voice came through one last time. Tomorrow's day 3. Dr. Sheffield will announce you're improving. They'll panic. Be ready. I touched Robert's tie on my wrist. Somewhere in this city, my son was drowning in guilt, and his wife was plotting with her lover to take everything Robert and I had built. Tomorrow I'd wake up. Tomorrow I'd look them in the eyes. And I'd know finally if Andrew was lost to me forever or if buried under Nicole's poison, there was still a son worth saving. At 10 o'clock on day 3, Dr. Sheffield walked into my room with his clipboard. Andrew and Nicole stood in the corner, silent and tense. Dr. Sheffield checked my monitors, then turned to them with a smile. Good news. Her vitals are strengthening. I believe she'll wake up within the hour. Nicole's face went white. Actually white, the color draining like someone had opened a tap. Her hand gripped the back of the chair. Andrew exhaled a long, shuddering breath of relief. His shoulders dropped. 2 completely different reactions. I'd seen enough. At 11, I began my performance. I groaned softly, fluttered my eyelids. Slowly, I opened my eyes and focused on Andrew's face. Andrew. My voice came out hoarse, cracked. Mom! Andrew rushed to my bedside, grabbed my hand. Oh, God, Mom, you're okay. Nicole stood back, arms folded, face carefully blank. Doctor. Sheffield stepped closer. Mrs. Hartley, you've been in an accident. You're at Memorial Health. You've been unconscious for 3 days, but you're going to be fine. I nodded weakly. 3 days. Everything's going to be okay, Dr. Sheffield said. Nicole finally stepped forward, her smile tight. We were so worried, Helen. I looked at her. Really looked. Searched her face for some trace of warmth. Found nothing but calculation. That afternoon, Nicole left to get coffee. The moment she was gone, Andrew pulled his chair closer. He held my hand like I might disappear. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. I'm okay, sweetheart. He shook his head. No, I mean Mom. I've been terrible. Nicole and I were in trouble. Financially. Over $100,000 in debt. I made bad investments, borrowed money I shouldn't have. The house the bank's going to foreclose in 3 months. My chest tightened. Not because I didn't know I'd heard it in the hallway 3 days ago, but because he was finally telling me himself. "We'll figure it out," I said softly. His eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve you." I wanted to scream at him, to shake him and demand the truth, to ask, did you know what Nicole was planning? Did you want me gone too? Instead, I squeezed his hand. "When I'm home, we'll talk about everything." That evening, Nicole returned. She set a coffee cup on my bedside table, her own cup, I noticed, not one for me. "When can you come home?" she asked Dr. Sheffield, not me. "A few more days of observation," he replied. Nicole's jaw tightened. A muscle twitched near her temple. Of course, whatever's best for Helen. But she checked her phone 3 times in 5 minutes. Distracted, angry, trapped. I watched her and thought, you wanted me gone. You planned for it. And now I'm alive, awake, and you have no idea what I know. After they left, Sarah's voice came through the earbud, quiet and steady. "Helen, we have everything. The recordings, the photos, Damian Ross's identity. We can arrest them right now, tonight." I stared at the ceiling. Robert's tie was still wrapped around my wrist. "Not yet," I said. Silence. Then Helen. "I want them to confess to my face. I want Andrew to choose Nicole or me, her lies or the truth. One last time." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "You're braver than I thought." I closed my eyes, touched Robert's tie. "I'm not brave, Sarah. I'm heartbroken. Dr. Sheffield signed the discharge papers Tuesday morning. 4 days since the accident. 4 days of lying, still listening, waiting." "You're cleared to go home," he said quietly. "Take it easy. No driving. Call me if anything feels wrong." "I will. Thank you." Andrew arrived 20 minutes later. He looked better, showered, shaved, but the tension hadn't left his face. Nicole followed him in heels, clicking designer purse over one arm. She stopped just inside the door, scrolling through her phone. Andrew helped me into the wheelchair. Nicole walked ahead. I watched her reflection in the polished elevator doors, jaw-tight eyes, cold fingers moving fast across the screen. I almost smiled. The drive home was silent. Andrew kept his hands at 10 and 2, glancing at me in the rearview mirror every few seconds. Nicole sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. At one point, I caught her eyes in the side mirror. She was watching me, calculating. When we pulled up to the house on Whitaker Street, Andrew came around to help me out. Nicole stayed in the car, tapping her phone. The door opened before we reached it. Rose stood in the entryway, her face bright with relief. She pulled me into a careful hug. "Thank God you're home." "I'm all right," I said. Nicole stepped inside, glancing around the living room. "We were planning to come by and clean up, but we didn't want to intrude." "You've already intruded," I thought, "into my files, my finances, my life." But I smiled. "That's thoughtful." Andrew hovered near the door. "Do you need anything, Mom?" "I'm fine. Rose is staying with me for a few days." Nicole's eyes narrowed. "Is that necessary?" "I'll feel safer," I said, holding her gaze. She didn't answer, just turned and walked toward the kitchen. Andrew kissed my forehead. "Call if you need anything." They left. That evening, Rose and I sat in Robert's study. The lamp cast long shadows across the bookshelves. "Sarah says she has enough to arrest both of them," Rose said quietly. "The recordings, the photos, Damian's identity." "I know." "Then why are we waiting?" I looked down at my hands, at the faint bruises still yellowing along my wrists. "Because I need to hear it from Andrew. I need to look him in the eyes." Rose leaned forward. "And if he lies, then I've lost him." She shook her head. "You're the strongest woman I know." "I'm not strong," I said. "I'm desperate." My phone buzzed. Sarah's name lit up the screen. "Just checking in," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine. What did you find?" "Damian Ross has a record. Fraud, embezzlement, assault charges. He's dangerous, Helen." So is Nicole. Agreed. I heard papers rustling. I'm setting up the confrontation for 3 days from now. My office. Rachel Porter will be there. Everything will be recorded. Good. Helen. Sarah said, her voice softer. Are you sure we can arrest them now? Yes, I do. She was quiet, then, all right, I'll call tomorrow. Rose had gone upstairs. The house was dark except for the desk lamp. I sat alone in Robert's study, his navy tie still wrapped around my wrist. Watch Andrew, he'd said on his deathbed. I was watching. In 3 days, I'd sit across from my son and his wife and ask them if they wanted me dead. And depending on their answer, I'd either forgive them or destroy them. I ran my thumb across the silk of Robert's tie. I'm watching, sweetheart, and I'm ready. Rachel Porter's office was all glass and steel, sharp angles and clean lines. She stood when I entered, extending her hand across the desk. Mrs. Hartley, Detective Collins told me what you've been through. I'm very sorry. I shook her hand. Sorry doesn't help. Preparation does. She smiled slightly. Then let's get to work. Rachel sat across from me, a yellow legal pad open in front of her. Rose sat to my left, hands folded. Sarah leaned against the window, arms crossed. To protect your assets, Rachel said, we need to update your will immediately. What do you suggest? A trust fund. Transfer all assets into it. When you pass, the trust distributes to charities, foundations, not to Andrew. My chest tightened. Not to Andrew at all. Not directly. We can establish a small annuity, $50,000 a year, managed by the trust. The bulk goes elsewhere. $50,000 out of $6.8 million. And if he contests it, Rachel's eyes were steady. Trusts are very difficult to contest, and if he's implicated in a conspiracy to harm you, he has no legal standing. I nodded slowly. Do it. She drafted the documents in silence, the only sound the click of her keyboard. 20 minutes later, she printed 3 copies and slid them across the desk. Sign here. Rose will witness. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled slightly as I signed my name, Helen Margaret Hartley. Rose signed beside me. Rachel collected the papers, placed them in a folder. Effective immediately. Your estate is now protected. I felt relief and grief in equal measure. I just disinherited my son. Sarah pushed off from the window. Helen, there's something else. We got Nicole's DNA from the coffee cup 4 days ago, rushed it to a private lab. Results came back this morning. I looked up. And the baby she's carrying isn't Andrew's. The father is Damian Ross. The words hit like a fist to the stomach. Does Andrew know? Not yet, but you're going to tell him at the confrontation. I closed my eyes. This will destroy him. Helen, Sarah said quietly. This is the final hammer on Nicole. She's lied about everything, the texts, the affair, the paternity. Andrew deserves to know. I know. But knowing didn't make it easier. Rachel leaned forward. Mrs. Hartley, when you confront them tomorrow, they may become aggressive, even violent. Are you prepared for that? I looked at her. I survived a staged car crash and 3 days pretending to be in a coma. I'm prepared. I left Rachel's office an hour later, the new will in my purse, heavy as lead. Rose walked beside me, silent. The sun was bright on Broughton Street, the air thick with humidity and the scent of magnolia. I just disinherited my son, the child I raised, loved, protected for 40 years. But he hasn't been that child for a long time. Tomorrow was the confrontation. Tomorrow I would sit across from Andrew and Nicole and lay it all out. The burner phone, the recordings, the parking lot footage, the affair, the baby that wasn't his. And I would watch Andrew choose, Nicole or me, her lies or the truth. I ran my hand over the folder in my purse. Tomorrow I'll know if I still have a son or if I lost him years ago. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I sat in Robert's study, his navy tie wrapped around my wrist, staring at the old photo albums spread across his desk. Andrew at 3, grinning with a missing front tooth. Andrew at 10, holding a blue ribbon from the science fair. Andrew at 18, standing beside me on move-in day at college, both of us squinting into the sun. Where did I lose him? When did greed replace love? I remembered teaching him to ride a bike on this very street, running beside him, hands on the seat, letting go when he was ready. I remembered tying his shoes 100 times before he learned the loops himself. I remembered reading to him every night, his small body curled against mine, his voice asking, "One more chapter, Mom." Robert's voice echoed in my memory, "He's a good kid, Helen. He'll make us proud. Would you forgive me, Robert, for what I'm about to do?" But then I remembered the texts on Nicole's burner phone. I remembered her whisper in the ICU, "I hope you don't wake up, Helen." I remembered the coldness in Andrew's eyes when he asked about the will. "You told me to watch him, Robert. You told me to watch the money. You knew. Somehow you knew." I closed the album and wiped my eyes. I'm doing this for both of us, for the life we built, for justice. At 2:30, I called Sarah. She answered on the first ring. "Can't sleep either," she said. "No." "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office conference room, 2 plainclothes officers will be in the building, and Andrew and Nicole. They think it's a family meeting about your finances. They don't know I'll be there, or Rachel." My chest tightened. The recordings, ready. Video, audio, the parking lot, photos of Nicole and Damien, Dr. Sheffield's sworn statement about the fake injuries, the DNA results. It's airtight, Helen. What happens after arrests, charges, trial? My voice broke. And Andrew. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "That depends on him." At 3, Rose knocked softly on the study door. She couldn't sleep either. We sat together in the dim light cups of tea, cooling in our hands. She looked at me with those sharp, kind eyes. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We have enough to arrest them right now." "I need to hear him say it," I said. "I need to look him in the eyes and know if there's anything left to save." "And if there isn't," I set down my tea, "then I lost him a long time ago. Tomorrow is just the funeral." We sat in silence after that, holding hands, waiting for the light. Dawn broke over Savannah in shades of gold and pink. I stood at my bedroom window watching the city wake up the joggers on the square, the early traffic on Bull Street, the magnolias bright against the morning sky. Somewhere in this city, Andrew and Nicole were waking up too. In 4 hours, we would sit across from each other in Sarah's conference room. I would lay out the evidence, the burner phone, the recordings, the photos of Nicole and Damien, the DNA results proving the baby wasn't Andrew's. And I would ask the question, "Did you want me dead?" Whatever they said, whatever they did, they would walk into that room expecting a quiet family meeting about finances. They would walk out in handcuffs, or Andrew would walk out free, and I would know finally if my son was still in there. I touched Robert's tie still wrapped around my wrist. 4 hours, sweetheart, and then we'll know. The conference room was cold and sterile gray walls, a metal table, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Andrew and Nicole sat across from me, both looking confused and slightly annoyed. "Mom, what is this about?" Andrew asked, glancing between me and the door. I looked at him, searching for the child I'd raised, the boy who'd cried in my arms after his first bike fall. I saw only a stranger. Sarah stood behind me, arms crossed. Rachel sat to my right, a thick folder in front of her. 2 plainclothes officers stood by the door. "This is about the truth," I said quietly. Nicole shifted in her seat. "Helen, if this is about the will, we can talk at home. 3 weeks ago," I said, my voice steady, "I found a burner phone in your purse, Nicole. The texts on that phone discussed my inheritance, $6.8 million, and how to deal with me." Nicole's face drained of color. That wasn't. Don't." I pushed a stack of printed screenshots across the table. "I have copies." Andrew picked up the first page. His eyes moved across the words. "Unknown, did she inherit everything, Nicole? Yes. All of it. 6.8 M unknown. So we wait, Nicole. No. Move faster. She's old, could be years. Unknown. How fast, Nicole? Soon. I'll take care of it." His face crumpled. "Nicole, what is this?" "You're taking it out of context," she said quickly, her voice sharp. "It's not." "Let me add context," I said. Sarah stepped forward and opened a laptop on the table. She pressed play. Audio recording 1, hospital hallway day. 11, Nicole's voice low and urgent. This is taking too long. What if she wakes up? Andrew's voice strained. What if someone finds out about before? Nicole. A few texts, no one's looking, relax. Audio recording 2, ICU room 307 day 12. Nicole's voice, a whisper close to the microphone. I hope you don't wake up, Helen. It would be so much easier. Video, parking lot day 13. The screen showed Nicole meeting a man, tall, dark hair, leather jacket. His hand rested on hers. She leaned in. He kissed her. Damien's voice through the parabolic mic. If she wakes up, we're done. Nicole. You'll get your half. Just be patient. Andrew stared at the screen, his face white, his hands trembling on the table. Nicole, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Who is he? She didn't answer. Who is he? Andrew listened to me. Who is he? Sarah stepped in. Damien Ross, record of fraud, embezzlement, assault charges. He's been in a relationship with your wife for 8 months. Andrew turned to Nicole slowly, as if moving through water. His eyes were wild with horror and betrayal. You cheated on me. Nicole's mask cracked just slightly. It's not what you think. There's more, I said. I pushed one more document across the table. The DNA results. You're 16 weeks pregnant, Nicole. Congratulations. But the baby isn't Andrew's. It's Damien's. Silence. Complete terrible silence. Andrew stared at the paper, then at Nicole, then back at the paper. No, he whispered. No, you said you told me. Nicole's jaw tightened. She said nothing. Andrew stood abruptly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. You lied, he said, his voice breaking. About everything. The baby, the money, all of it. He turned to me, his eyes wide and desperate. Mom, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know about him, about the baby. I held his gaze, my voice calm and cold. But you knew about the plan, Andrew. You knew she wanted me dead, and you went along with it. He opened his mouth, closed it. No words came. Nicole stood, her face hardening into something sharp and defiant. This is entrapment, she said. Sarah smiled. No, she said. This is justice. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and tell me, do you think Helen should forgive Andrew, or is it too late? The next part reveals everything. The arrests, the breaking point, and Helen's final decision. Fair warning, what happens next is based on real legal procedures, but some details have been dramatized for storytelling. If you're ready to see justice served, keep watching. If not, this is your chance to step away. Nicole bolted for the door. Officer Reed stepped into her path, hand on his holster. Sarah's voice cut through the room. Sit down, Mrs. Hartley. Nicole spun around. You can't prove anything. Sarah pulled out handcuffs. Nicole Hartley, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder fraud and attempted manipulation of an inheritance. You have the right to remain silent, Nicole screamed. Andrew sat frozen. Officer Morales took Nicole's other arm. They cuffed her, the metal clicking shut. She twisted toward Andrew, eyes wild. Do something, tell them. Andrew didn't move, didn't speak. Nicole's face contorted. You're pathetic, she hissed. You've always been pathetic. I should have left you years ago. Andrew crumpled forward, tears streaming. She's manipulating you, Nicole shouted as the officers pulled her toward the door. She's destroying us. I stood slowly. I didn't destroy you, Nicole. You destroyed yourself. They dragged her into the hallway. Her screaming echoed long after the door closed. 5 minutes later, another officer brought Damien Ross in. Already cuffed, leather jacket gone, dark hair disheveled. Through the glass partition, he saw Nicole mascara streaking her face. He turned to Sarah. I want a lawyer. You'll get one. At arraignment. His eyes found mine. He smiled, slow, cruel. You think you're so smart, old woman, you'll regret this. Sarah stepped between us, threatening a witness. Add another charge. They took him away. His smirk never faltered. Now just the four of us, me, Andrew, Sarah, and Rachel. Andrew sat with his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm sorry." Sorry for what, Andrew? Be specific. He looked up, face red and blotchy. For not stopping her. For listening. She said you were selfish, hoarding Dad's money while we drowned in debt. She said if something happened to you, it would be natural. You're 68. Accidents happen. My chest tightened. Did you help her plan the accident? No, I swear I didn't know about Damien the baby. But you knew she wanted me dead. Silence. He looked down. I thought she was just venting, just angry. I didn't think she'd actually... You didn't think, I said. Or you didn't want to think. His eyes went wide, desperate. Please, Mom, please forgive me. I'll do anything. I stood, smoothed my cardigan, Robert's tie still wrapped around my wrist. No. Andrew's face collapsed. Mom, you chose her over me, over your father's memory, over everything we taught you. My voice didn't shake. I wouldn't let it. Now you have to live with that. Sarah stepped forward. Andrew, will you cooperate, testify against Nicole and Damien for leniency? He blinked, dazed. What charges? I didn't do anything. Conspiracy. Failure to report a crime. We have recordings of you agreeing to wait for your mother to die. Andrew turned to me one last time. I saw the boy who cried after nightmares, who held my hand crossing the street. But I also saw the man who stood silent while his wife wished I'd never wake up. Testify, I said quietly. Tell the truth. It's the only way you'll ever face yourself. Andrew nodded, barely chin trembling. Sarah gestured to Officer Reed. Process him. Keep him separate from Nicole. They let him out. I stood alone in the conference room. Rachel touched my shoulder gently. Helen, are you all right? I looked at the empty chair where my son had sat. I'm vindicated, I said, and completely, utterly heartbroken. The news broke just hours after the arrests. Savannah woman escapes daughter-in-law's murder plot. I watched from my living room, Rose sitting beside me, both of us silent. The TV showed my face a photo from Robert's funeral, where I looked small and fragile in my black dress. I don't feel small anymore, I thought. I feel 1,000 years old, and so tired. The evening news on day 21 played footage of the courthouse. Nicole Hartley, 37, and her lover Damien Ross, 41, have been arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. The victim, Helen Hartley, 68, the defendant's mother-in-law. The screen showed Nicole being led into the courthouse, her face half covered by her coat. Damien smirked at the cameras, defiant even in handcuffs. Andrew was nowhere in the footage, protected as a cooperating witness. I turned off the TV. I didn't want this to be public, I said quietly. Rose shook her head. You didn't have a choice, Helen. Justice has to be public. Justice doesn't feel like I imagined. On day 22nd, my neighbor George Sullivan came by with a casserole. Helen, he said, standing on my porch, his kind face lined with concern. I just saw the news. I'm so sorry. If you need anything at all. Thank you, George. I took the dish from him, genuinely touched. That's very kind. He hesitated. Your husband was a good man. He'd be proud of you. My eyes stung. I don't know anymore. George's expression softened. You survived, Helen. That takes extraordinary strength. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the casserole. I didn't touch it, and for the first time since the arrests, I cried. On day 23, Rachel called with a legal update. Nicole and Damien are being held without bail. High flight risk, and given the severity of the charges, the judge wasn't taking any chances. And Andrew... My voice was steady, but my chest felt tight. Released on his own recognizance. He's agreed to testify against them. What happens to him? Rachel was quiet for a moment. If he testifies honestly and cooperates, fully suspended sentence community service. He won't go to jail. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. And Nicole? 15 to 25 years if she's convicted. Damien will face similar charges. And the baby. That's complicated. Family services will get involved, likely adoption, or Damien's family if they step forward. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. A grandchild I would never know. That night, Sarah called. "Trial's been set for 6 months from now. Are you ready for that?" I looked around my living room. The photo album still sat on Robert's desk. His navy tie was draped over the arm of his chair. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. No Robert, no Andrew. Just me. "I'm ready," I said. I hung up. But as I sat alone in the darkness, I wondered if I was telling the truth. 6 months. 6 months of depositions, lawyer meetings, media attention. 6 months of reliving every moment, the burner phone, the recordings, the fake accident, the 3 days I'd lain in that hospital bed pretending to be unconscious while my son's wife whispered that she hoped I'd never wake up. 6 months until I'd sit in a courtroom and watch my son testify against the woman he'd married, the woman he'd loved or thought he loved. I ran my hand over Robert's tie. Ready or not, I thought the worst is still ahead. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom at Chatham County Courthouse, my hands clasped in my lap, Robert's navy tie wrapped around my wrist like a talisman. Nicole sat at the defense table, her belly swollen at 7 months. She didn't look at me. Hadn't looked at me once since the trial began. Damien sat beside her, jaw set, eyes defiant. Andrew sat alone in the gallery, waiting to be called as a witness. He looked thinner, older. The prosecution laid it out methodically. The burner phone texts, the hospital hallway recordings, the parking lot video of Nicole and Damien kissing, the DNA results proving the baby wasn't Andrew's, the sworn statements from Dr. Sheffield about the fake injuries, Sarah Collins' testimony about the staged accident, the surveillance footage, Damien's criminal record. Rachel Porter walked the jury through the financials, my $6.8 million estate, Andrew and Nicole's $120,000 debt, the will that left everything to me and nothing to them until I died. The defense argued there was no actual harm. I was still alive, wasn't I? The texts were just venting, not planning. People say things they don't mean when they're frustrated. The jury didn't look convinced. Then Andrew took the stand. He looked pale and gaunt, his suit hanging loose on his frame. When he raised his right hand to swear the oath, his fingers trembled. The prosecutor stepped forward. "Mr. Hartley, did your wife discuss harming your mother in order to obtain her inheritance?" Andrew's voice cracked. "Yes." "Did you participate in those discussions?" He looked down at his hands. I didn't stop her. I should have. But I didn't." "Why not?" Andrew looked up. For the first time in 6 months, his eyes met mine. "Because I was weak," he said quietly, "and greedy, and I'm ashamed." Nicole's attorney objected. The judge sustained it. But the damage was done. The jury had seen his face, heard his voice break. They deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant, Nicole Hartley, guilty. On the charge of fraud, guilty. On the charge of attempted manipulation of inheritance, guilty. Nicole collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Damien cursed loudly and had to be restrained by the bailiff. Andrew sat with his head in his hands. I felt nothing, just a vast, hollow emptiness. The judge sentenced them 2 days later. Nicole, 20 years. Damien, 18 years. I stood as the bailiff led them out. Nicole was still crying. Damien was still cursing. Andrew sat frozen in the gallery, staring at nothing. I walked out of the courtroom. I didn't wait for Andrew. Didn't look back. Outside, the Savannah sun was bright and warm. Spring had come while I'd been sitting in that cold courtroom, reliving the worst months of my life. I stood on the courthouse steps and breathed in the air, magnolia blossoms, fresh-cut grass, the salt from the river. Rose was waiting by the car. She didn't say anything, just opened the door. I slid into the passenger seat and closed my eyes. It's over, I thought. But nothing felt finished. 20 years for Nicole, 18 for Damien, and Andrew free legally, but destroyed in every other way. I'd won, I'd survived, and I'd lost everything that mattered. Andrew asked to see me 1 week after the trial. I wanted to refuse, but Rose stopped me. You'll regret it if you don't, even if it's just to say goodbye. So I agreed. A cafe on Broughton Street, public, neutral, safe. I arrived first. My hands trembled as I wrapped them around a cup of coffee I didn't drink. Outside, Savannah moved on tourists, local spring sunshine through the live oaks. Andrew walked in 10 minutes late. He looked older, gaunt clothes hanging loose new lines around his eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. I didn't smile. "What do you want to say?" He clasped his hands on the table, knuckles white. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I never wanted you dead. I was stupid, weak. I let her convince me you were the problem." "You stood by while she planned it," I said. "That's enough, Andrew." He nodded, tears falling. He didn't wipe them away. "I know." Silence settled between us. The cafe hummed espresso, hissing conversations, murmuring. "I'm leaving Savannah," he said finally. "I can't stay here. Every street reminds me of what I did, what I lost." "Where will you go?" "I don't know. Somewhere I can start over." "That's probably wise." He looked up, eyes red and swollen. "Will you ever forgive me?" I looked at him, really looked. The man across from me was a stranger, but underneath I could still see the boy I'd raised. "I don't know, Andrew," I said quietly. "Maybe someday, but not today." His face crumpled. "I understand." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small white envelope. "This is for you. Don't open it now. Open it when you're ready." He stood, hesitated, then leaned down and kissed my forehead the way I used to kiss him goodnight. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. "I always will." Then he was gone. At home, I opened the envelope at Robert's desk. Inside was a photograph Andrew at 4 or 5, sitting on Robert's lap in the backyard, both laughing. Sunday afternoon. Andrew had just learned to ride his bike without training wheels. I turned it over. On the back, Andrew's handwriting, "I'm sorry I didn't become the man Dad hoped I would be. I'll try to live better." Andrew. I held the photo for a long time, my thumb tracing Robert's face. Andrew was gone. Nicole was in prison. Damien, too. I'd won. But the house was so quiet. And I realized something surviving isn't the same as living. Rose appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. She set one in front of me and sat down. "You all right?" I looked at her, my oldest friend. "No, I said. "But I will be." She squeezed my hand. "Andrew's gone, but you're still here, and you get to decide what comes next." I looked at the photo one more time, then placed it carefully in Robert's desk drawer. She was right. I'd survived. Now I needed to figure out how to live. 1 year later, I stood in front of a renovated building on Bull Street. The morning sun glinted off the new windows. Above the door, a brass plaque read, "Robert Hartley Community Center, Arts and Education." Rose stood beside me, her hand squeezing mine. "He would have loved this." I nodded, blinking back tears. "I know." I'd used $2 million from my estate to create the center. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about purpose. The center offered free classes to anyone who walked through the doors. Art, music, adult literacy, financial planning for low-income families. I taught a weekly class called Life Skills for Seniors, helping older adults navigate everything from online banking to recognizing financial scams. I'd found my purpose in helping others, especially women my age who felt vulnerable, invisible, alone. "I don't want anyone else to feel as alone as I did," I told Rose one afternoon as we painted the community room walls together. The center was thriving. Over 50 students of all ages came through each week. I'd made new friends, real friends, not just acquaintances. I was building a community brick by brick. I was even dating. George Sullivan, my neighbor, had asked me to dinner 3 months ago. We'd been seeing each other slowly, carefully. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice. "It's nice not to be alone," I told Rose with a shy smile when she asked about him. She grinned. Robert would approve. Sarah stopped by the center one afternoon in civilian clothes off duty. "I heard about this place." she said, looking around at the art on the walls, the sound of a piano lesson drifting from the back room. "I'm impressed, Helen." "You inspired me," I said. "You turned your mother's tragedy into purpose, into justice. I'm trying to do the same." Sarah smiled. "You're not just trying, you're succeeding." We hugged not the hug of survivors clinging to each other, but the embrace of real friends. A week ago, I'd received a letter. The postmark said, Oregon, Andrew. He was working as an insurance agent in Portland, going to therapy twice a week, trying to rebuild his life from the ground up. Mom, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to ask for it, but I'm trying to be better, to live better, to become the man Dad hoped I'd be. I hope someday we can talk again. Not now. I understand. But someday, I love you. Andrew. I'd sat with the letter for a long time. Then I'd folded it carefully and placed it in Robert's desk drawer next to the photograph Andrew had given me. Maybe someday, but not yet. That night, I sat in Robert's study. His navy tie lay on the desk in front of me, not wrapped around my wrist, not tucked in my pocket, just resting there. I didn't need to carry it with me anymore. I touched it gently, remembering the man who'd worn it, the man who'd told me to watch Andrew, watch the money, the man who'd known somehow that I'd need to be strong. "I did it, sweetheart," I whispered. "I survived. I rebuilt." Outside, Savannah was alive with evening sounds, cicadas, distant music from River Street, the rustle of Spanish moss in the breeze. I looked at the tie one more time, then carefully folded it and placed it in the drawer beside Andrew's letter and the photograph. "I learned that strength isn't holding on to the past," I said softly. "It's creating a future worth living." I stood turned off the desk lamp and walked toward the door. Rose was waiting in the kitchen with tea and laughter. George was coming by later for dinner. The community center opened at 9 tomorrow morning. Life was waiting, and I was finally ready to live it. Looking back on everything I've been through in these family drama stories, I want to share what I've learned. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let love blind you to manipulation. Don't wait until you're fighting for your life to realize the people closest to you wanted you gone. Grandma stories like mine aren't just entertainment, they're warnings. We elderly women are often targeted in family drama stories because people assume we're weak or too trusting. But by God's grace, I survived. By God's strength, I found the courage to fight back. And by God's mercy, justice was served. These grandma stories teach us hard lessons. My advice: protect yourself. Watch your finances closely. Trust your instincts. Never assume that family automatically means safety. Family drama stories like this happen every day, and grandma stories about financial abuse are more common than you think. But so is resilience. If my story helps even one person recognize financial or emotional abuse, then every painful moment was worth it. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Final note: this content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the core lessons about recognizing financial and emotional abuse are real. If this style doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. Please seek content that better suits your needs.